Imagine a gritty old Western movie, but insert Wolverine instead. How awesome does that sound? Because that is what we got with Logan. So Logan's finally out. Logan marks the last movie for Hugh Jackman as the character of Wolverine. It's been 17 years and he's finally calling it quits. So this is the movie that we're all counting on to send him a great goodbye and farewell to this character that we know and love, played by our favorite Australian actor, Hugh Jackman. This movie is directed by James Mangold and stars Hugh Jackman once again as Wolverine, or Logan, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, or Charles Xavier, and it introduces a new actress named Daphne Keane, and she plays Laura, or X-23. What do I say about this movie? It was amazing. It was so good. Everything about this movie just made me so happy as a fan of the general universe and as the Wolverine character. I think they did the best that they could have possibly done. After 17 years of seeing Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, they sent it off for his final film perfectly. I don't want to see anything else because this is the way I want to remember the Wolverine. This movie takes place in the year 2029 and follows a much older, worn down, battle-damaged Wolverine. Nothing like we've seen before. In this movie, his healing isn't quite working the way we're used to it working. He gets shot, he gets beat up, and you see the marks. He has scars. He's not healing like he used to once in the previous movies like we've seen so many times before. He's an old man now. You can tell by both his appearance and the way he moves and acts. He's walking with a limp. It's shocking. Daphne Keene's performance as Laura, or X-23, was amazing. This little girl is going places, and I really, really hope to see X-23-led movie in the future. Maybe a couple years down the road after, this movie's settled and everyone has accepted what's happened. The movie ends in such a spot that I could see it happening. Like, a movie with this badass little girl slicing all these people up. I mean, it would have to be R, because I don't know if I can go back after seeing this. But, my goodness, she was amazing and such a good addition to the cast for this film. This is my warning to you all. When you see Patrick Stewart's Charles Xavier on this screen, you're going to be shocked, because he is not like the Patrick Stewart Charles Xavier guy we left off in the last movie. He is old, he is withered, he's losing his mind. It's quite something to watch, and you kind of it takes you aback at first. Was it bad? No. By all means, this was such a good performance for Patrick Stewart. And I think it could be even Oscar-worthy, as well as Hugh Jackman's. Hugh Jackman's performance as Logan, Old Man Logan, it was amazing. They took it straight out of the comics. He looks exactly like he would. He's all old, his beard's grown out, he's got gray hair, he's covered in scars, he walks with a limp. He's done with life at this point. It's so good, and I hope to see these names, as well as just... I think this comic book movie, as well as The Dark Knight back then, I think this is another movie that honestly has a fair chance for Best Picture at next year's Oscars. If it doesn't, that means this year for movies, we're going to have an amazing year. But I really do believe that this movie should come back up next February during the Oscars. For both performances, for even sound, for Best Picture, it's all over the place. And this isn't just me being biased. I love all kinds of movies, not just comic book movies, of course. But my goodness, this movie is really, really something. The way this movie shows and tells things to the audience is amazing. They use visual storytelling and amazing dialogue. The script in this movie is so well written that they don't need any exposition. Everything that's done through this movie is natural, it's spoken to you, and they don't need to tell you certain things. Like, Wolverine, he's old, he's got scars, he's beard, everything, right? They don't need to tell you he's been through things. You can look at him, you see those scars, they're not healing. He looks old and rattled and injured, and just by the visuals, you can already tell what he's been through and what he's going through. They don't need to tell you these things. It's so great. I really like this movie because I felt personally connected to it. The audience can personally connect to this movie because it feels down to earth. It's not out in outer space or fighting giant robots or dinosaurs. It's a man and his friend and this little girl trying to get across the desert. They just, happen to have big claws coming out of their fists. Now, another thing I feel like I should probably touch on quickly is the fact that this movie is rated R. It's R for a good reason. A lot of people were worried when we found out that this movie was rated R, that they were going to abuse the swearing and put blood and gore in it and, just abuse the fact that it's rated R and put swearing just because, we can, because it's R. Well, thankfully this movie didn't do that. It is a little bit odd at first to go back into this world that we've been in so many times before and see these characters and, Professor X might drop a few F-bombs, and it was a little bit startling at first, but they don't do it in such a way that you feel like it's wrong. They take these characters and they put them in realistic dialogue situations, because these characters aren't where we left off with them. They're tattered down and old, and they've been through things, and you can tell their lives aren't in good places. So when they swear, they're swearing because that's how anyone would react in this situation. They wouldn't say, oh hubbub, or oh crap. They would say, like, real swear words in these situations, and they can use that, and they do use it, which is so good, because all the expressions you hear and see in this movie feel real. As for the blood and gore, there's so much of it. It's so great. In other movies, like, X-Men, Origins, my favorite movie, I'm joking, of course, and even, Days of Future Past, like, we've seen Wolverine cut up so many people. He stabs them, he claws them. There's no blood. We've never seen blood. They're good action scenes, but they're not the action scenes we want and we feel are real. In this movie, people get stabbed, people get sliced, and when it happens, there's red. There's red everywhere. It's so good. We see Logan running through the buildings and everything, and people are coming after him, and he's slicing them all up. There's scenes where he takes his claws and goes right through their heads, and their head splits into pieces. It's exactly what it would be if someone took 3 knives and stabbed somebody with it. It's realistic gore, and it feels so natural and perfect in the depiction of this movie. It's great to finally see it and to send off the character in a way that feels real and does it justice to, the source material. Because all the comic books, there's blood, there's death, there's decapitation. We finally get to see that in a movie. It's amazing. The villain in the movie was good, but he's exactly what you expect for any villain in this movie. You don't want them to get too much screen time because you don't want to take away from the main characters, because if you gave him any more, you might get mixed up, and you want to focus your story on Logan and Professor X and the new girl, right? You don't want to spend too much background story on Donald Pierce and all his Reavers. They're great. They do an amazing job with what they're given, but they could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but I don't necessarily want to see that. It's nitpicky. So if we had seen it fleshed out more, which would have been great for his personal character, I'm worried that it would have taken away from the 3 great characters we already got. So, pros and cons. Now, there were a few things that I questioned in the movie, and I'm not going to get too much into them because they could be considered spoilers. Overall, I think Logan is amazing. I think it is the best movie we've seen from Hugh Jackman. I think it's the best X-Men movie we've ever had. One of the best comic book, if not the best comic book movie we've ever had. I give it a 9.4 out of 10. It was amazing. I don't know what else to say, guys. Go see it. I hope you enjoyed, and tell me what you think when you finally see the movie.